The state capture inquiry will continue today. This time it will hear evidence from the Director of Asset Movement Financial Services, Kalandra Viljoen. Head of Fuel Management at SAA, Mark Vaughan, is also set to testify. Last week, former Northwest Premier Supra Mahumapelo was implicated in the inquiry. Businesswoman Babadi Tlatsana claimed that her company, Koroneka, and others were used to siphon off millions of rand. She claimed it was hijacked by Brian van Wyk of SA Express. Koroneka was allegedly paid to do ground handling at 2 Northwest Province airports. It received 8.5 million rand before completing even 1 month of work. Well, another inquiry that we're watching for you on ENCA is that concerning Africa's largest asset manager, the Public Investment Corporation, the PIC, to be resuming this morning. And big names are expected to testify this week. Last week, Labour Federation Cosatu argued workers should have representation on the board of the PIC. My colleague Heidi Giokos is tracking the story for us and is joining us now in the studio. Good morning, Heidi.
Morning,
another week, it's coming up. Before we talk about what we're expecting, Cosatu was very vocal last week at the PIC. Tell us about that.
Exactly. So they have been very vocal in terms of getting that PIC bill signed off, so amendments to that bill to allow the PIC to be more transparent, to ensure that there's great investment, a return on investment, and that the depositors benefit, being government employees' pension funds. Also ensuring that the PIC reports annually and perhaps quarterly to government and to whichever structures, to make sure that they are very clear in terms of the investments that they're getting involved in. But something else that Cosatu was very clear on was that they want representation on the PIC board. They want Cosatu and other federations to be able to be part of the PIC board.
So they want Labour representatives to be part of the PIC.
Definitely. So they're saying that it will just make sure that all checks and balances are there and to make sure that everything is done in favour of the workers, because at the end of the day, it's government employees' pension funds that are at risk. They did also mention the fact that they are willing to work with FEDUSA, and one must remember that FEDUSA hasn't been they've been actually heavily implicated throughout this commission, given the fact that the former General Secretary Dennis George had been benefiting from AO Technology Solutions shares and didn't disclose this to FEDUSA, and he has since been fired from the Federation. But they're very keen on working with FEDUSA. They're saying that they want a stronger labour force within the PIC to make sure everything works properly.
Now, the PIC, there was supposed to be some amendments to the PIC bill,
yes,
and that's really not been happy. But Cosatu has raised this issue.
Yes, so we do understand that the Finance Committee has adopted the bill, but it hasn't been signed off by the President. This is the Parliamentary
Finance Committee.
Yes,
okay.
So they've adopted the bill, but it hasn't been signed off by the President, and speculation is that it's because they're waiting for this inquiry to conclude its work.
In case they need to tweak something.
In case they need to change something or add something to that bill. But Matthew Parks last week actually mentioning the fact that there's been serious pushback in terms of signing that bill, because he's saying that then CEO Dan Machila had not wanted that bill to be passed, as well as National Treasury. But Cosatu is saying that the reason why National Treasury did not want to sign that off is because they have separate issues to that. But executives within the PIC in Parliament had mentioned that they don't want that bill to be signed off because it gives others too much power and the PIC less power.
Okay.
So
in my introduction to this interview, I said there's some big names expected this week as the PIC resumes. I mean, generally, from what I understood in the past, there's a witness protection program underway. But I mean, you sort of got wind that there could be some big names coming up this week.
Exactly. Unfortunately, I can't disclose who is coming today, but it is a very big name, and one must remember that it's nearing the end of the Commission. The Commission needs to submit its work and its final report by the 31st of July to the President. So the likes of Dan Machila, Matsepo More, and those big names within the PIC that haven't testified as yet.
I expected to do so before.
And they've been heavily implicated. I mean, Dan Machila, who was the head of the PIC when all of this transpired, his name has been brought up in almost every single person's testimony throughout this commission, as well as Matsepo More, who's been heavily implicated in terms of taking action against those who have testified at the Commission, and that's why she was suspended in March. So we'll just have to wait and see. Stay tuned, because it's like
what time does it get going?
At 10 o'clock today.
10 o'clock this
Yes.
morning.